All right. So today, what we're going to do is kind of go over what we're doing for this week in class. Again, it is week 3. And let's start off with our comp class here. So, again, make sure you're in your modules. And what we're going to be doing is, let's see. So, if you haven't already, be sure to look at your technical resources here. Again, there are some on Windows and Office 365. I would recommend looking over some of these, especially for your Office 365 applications. You can look at some of these cheat sheets that we've provided for you. For example, if I open this one up here, you can look at how to do things. Now, you can look at, again, if you're going to be using your Mac, which you should be, try to focus on the one that says Outlook for Mac. That's really what we want, right? So as you're looking for this, you can also see how you can navigate through most of your applications. Now, when you're looking at the Outlook for Mac items, what I want you to do is, if you can, just make sure that you set up any forwarding rules. If you want your CNI email to be forwarded to Gmail or to Yahoo Mail, whatever you use. And if you're going to install it onto your iPhone or your Android phone, then again, just be sure that you use the Microsoft Exchange in order for you to do that. Because if you try to use the Outlook, it's not going to work. Now, here under the Mac OS resources, again, these are some other things that I added for you guys about a week or so ago. But you should be looking through some of these. I know a lot of you asked about the keyboard shortcuts. So they are here, and you should be able to see everything that you need. Let's see once it loads. While that's loading, again, there's other things too, like organizing your files in the Finder. This is super important because as we're looking through this, let me see here. As we're looking through this here, again, these are some things that we are still going to cover in class, but you should know what your Finder is. Your Finder, as you see, is this little icon here. If you look at your dock, it's this little smiley face. As you go through here, you can see various applications and tools that you need, right? So in your Finder, when you open it, you're going to see this Dropbox, recents, AirDrop, recents, applications, downloads, and everything else that you need. Depending on how you want to do things, you could add tags to all of your documents, meaning you could add a math tag to your math assignments. You could add a Comp 101 to your computer application assignments, and you can also add an English tag to your English homework assignments. So then what you can do is, so when you do your Spotlight search, for example, you'll be able to do the command spacebar, and you can look up for things via tags. So you can say Math 101 or Math 100, and you'll be able to find everything that you need. So here, as you can see, they clicked on desktop, so you can see all your stuff. When you see these green dots, that just means that it's correlating with a tag. As you can see here, we have macro, flower, Golden State Park, right? And those correlate with garden. So as you're looking for everything, again, as you continue throughout your journey here at CNI College, you're going to have a lot of work that you'll be doing. A lot of papers, a lot of documents, things that you'll be needing to save and store. So please try your best to be organized with your work, because as you're doing this stuff, it can get messy. It can get super messy if you start having things cluttered. So either organize them in your desktop, you can organize them in your documents, or create new folders for all of your classes. The better you're organized, the easier it will be to find the things that you need as you're progressing in the program. Because trust me, do your best to save as much as you can, because there may be some time down the road where you're going to need something from a previous class. So for example, maybe you're in term 5 and you need some notes from your anatomy courses. Then anything that you have from them, whether it's notes or any PowerPoints, be sure to save them somewhere. They don't take up that much. Storage. Usually, when it's a PDF, a Word doc, and some images, even some PowerPoints, they don't really take up that much storage. So you can set them aside, and you can even compress them if needed. But like I said, unless you're saving videos and things like that, then that's going to take up most of your storage. But if you're doing a fairly good job of organizing your items, then again, you can always use them again. Now, later down the road, again, these are your MacBooks. You can't delete everything. Just the issue is once you delete something, if you need it in the future, it's going to be incredibly hard to retrieve it. If you've uploaded to Canvas, then maybe you can come to IT and we can help you retrieve some of those things. But you just want to be careful when you're deleting stuff because though there are tools and other ways to retrieve some of your deleted items, it could be hard. But I'll be updating some of these just to make sure they're actually still active. But again, look through these resources. There's a lot of great things that you can do. And let's see if this one here populates. But yeah, so getting to know the Mac desktop. I remember during orientation, many of you said that you weren't familiar with having a Mac. So by now, hopefully you at least know how to navigate it fundamentally, right? Go through most of the basic apps, maybe some of your settings here, your Finder, and a few other things. Again, we've done our best to customize your dock with everything that we think you're going to need or that we know that you're going to need, but you may feel inclined to download other items. Again, many of you have downloaded Microsoft Teams. Many of you have downloaded Zoom and other applications that you're going to need throughout. Now, that's up to you. Again, these are yours. You can connect your iCloud account to your Mac. And the benefit to that is if you already have purchased applications on a few other devices. Now, this doesn't work for every single app because some apps, if you buy them on an iPad, they may only work for the iPad. So you have to check in the App Store. But for example, I use GoodNotes for a lot of my note taking. And the cool thing about that is when I write my notes on my iPad, they actually get automatically imported into the GoodNotes app for the desktop. So it's good ways to do things. And again, here you can look up like how to organize your files like we just did. And this one page here can actually navigate you through the rest of what you need. So start with this one. And most of you should either have the Monterey 12 or Ventura 13 if you've already upgraded. I believe when we usually get the Macs from Apple, at least as far as I know, or as recently we get Monterey 12. So you can select that. And there are some slight differences, but nothing too much. If you haven't already, then you should be able to upgrade to Ventura 13. Just make sure that when you're upgrading or updating your Mac, that you do it maybe overnight when you're not going to be using it, because sometimes depending on your network access, it can take about an hour. So you want to be sure that you're not going to be doing anything or needing it within that time because you won't be able to do anything. Make sure that it's charged and that it's plugged in and that you have a stable network connection when you're updating so nothing happens. Yeah, so try your best to go through some of these resources. They will help you out. And when during our week 5, when we're doing the Kahoot, you're going to be asked questions about these resources here. So again, these are going to be part of your Kahoot that we'll be doing during week 5. Now, if you saw, I've added this last week. I think I added this by Friday. I think it was Friday or Saturday. I added this here, and it shows you how to go through the Learn library. So you can click on this one here, and you can watch the embedded video.
Okay, so
there's a few things. You can just watch it embedded, but it might look small like this. So there's a few things you can do. Is over here, if you look at this little star-looking icon, you can change the resolution type. So as you're doing this, say if I want it bigger, for example, then I can click on this and it makes it full screen here. Then I can hit play, but you're going to see that the resolution
today is getting
a little bad as I'm playing this.
More familiar with
what I can do is
or getting started with
and let me look at the resolution.
The Learn library.
It's a little nicer here. So again, you can change
now,
the resolution.
First thing is you want to make sure that you are in your Canvas.
It's pretty low. But if you go
whether
by
you're in your
1490,
dashboard or you select your courses, it doesn't really matter as long as you select any course. So for example, or for this example, we're going to go ahead and use the...
Now let's go back to our modules here. So for week 3, we have a few things. Again, this week is when we have your topic submission or submission of topic assignment. But like I added here, only submit to this when you are 100% sure that you're ready to submit. Because what happens, especially in your English class, is that when you submit it to your English class to this area, it's going to save it on Turnitin. That means that if you just wanted to review it or have your instructor review it, when you submit it again, the plagiarism percentage will be a lot higher. So please be careful. I posted an announcement over the weekend about it, that once you post it there, it's too late. Like, we can't retake it, or we can't take it down from Turnitin. It just stores on there. So if you wanted us, or if you still want us to go ahead and review your draft, up here at the top under the Writing Resources module, you're going to see towards the bottom, there's these 2 draft submissions. Of course, right now we're only focused on the week 3 submission of topic. So if you're in my class, then I have it up until this Wednesday for me to review it. And again, this Wednesday and this Friday from 10 a.m. to 12, I'll be hosting office hours. So if you want to talk about your topic, or if you want to meet with me, then those are the best times to do it, because I'll be able to, I should already be going through most of your drafts. If you're in my class, I'm starting today to go over everything. So if any of you have submitted something last week or over the weekend, then I'll start going through these week 3 submission of topic drafts and giving you feedback. Preferably submit it through here, but if you email it to me, then that's okay. The only issue with that is that I can't provide you feedback like I could through here, because through here I can highlight things. I can use a red marker to show you where you made mistakes. I can strike through things to tell you to delete stuff. So it makes it much easier when you submit it through this draft. And also, later I will be posting a video on using this template and kind of focusing in depth on how to do the submission for topic, or your submission of topic assignment. So be expecting that later today or by tomorrow latest. Okay, so we'll be going over that, but let's go see what we have for week 3. So for week 3 in the computer class, we have a few things. So just because this week we do have a holiday, I'm going to push the simulation assignment for week 4, because again, I want to go over those with you in class, especially if you have questions. I want to be able to answer those. So we have this discussion here called working in teams. And as we can see here, we're going to go ahead and watch this video. There is no me in team. And then you're going to go ahead and read these pages, 201 through 209 from your Turnitin. So again, attributes of a successful team. When you think about creating a successful team, remember the acronym, SIMPLE, or SIMPLE. It will remind you of the 6 key attributes necessary to develop a high-functioning team. So the S is for shared goal, the I is for interdependence, M is for makeup, and as we can see over here, P is for people skills, then we have L for leadership, and finally E for excellent communication. There's a lot of things that come together when trying to make a perfect team. Now, more and more, we stray away from using the term leader for those that are kind of in charge of the group, just because when someone is assigned as leader, sometimes what can happen is it gets to their head, and they end up not doing any work and start delegating too much when they're also part of the team. So just because you're somebody that's given a leader role, or kind of like an overseer, doesn't necessarily mean that you're not supposed to be doing work. It just means that you should be kind of helping and making sure that everything stays in line, but you still have your parts to do with the given project. In this class, by the end, we are going to be doing a presentation, and with that, you are allowed to work in groups. But what I don't want to see is, if you're in a group of 4, 2 or 3 people do everything while one person kind of stays behind because they were, quote unquote, moderating or leading the team, because again, that doesn't work. Everybody gets graded individually, and I want to be sure that everybody is doing everything equally. So once you have read and watched this video, this is what we're looking for in this discussion. Describe one important point that you learned about teamwork from the reading or video that resonated with you. Explain why it stood out to you. Perhaps you had a positive or negative teamwork experience in the past, and now you better understand the situation. So again, when you're looking at this, you're going to be looking at some of the parts that, for example, let's look at this here. As we're reading through this, let's look at some of these roles and responsibilities as a team. Now, many people, depending on it, just depends on your academic experience. For example, I've had both. Of course, I've had both. I had really good experiences with working in a team, and I've also had really bad experiences with teams. I remember once during my undergrad, I had to work with just one other partner to do a presentation for one of my classes. And we've, up until that point, I was doing my part. My partner was supposed to do her part. And she never communicated with me. I never knew where she was with anything. Then when it came to the day of the actual presentation, she didn't show up. So my professor told me to wait until the following week to do it. And the following week came again. I still hadn't heard anything from my partner, and she didn't show up that week either. So I just told my professor, "Is it okay if I already started working on her part? I know her part. Can I just do both?" And I had to do both, and that was just I had to essentially do twice the amount of work. And unfortunately, too, because the way we were graded then, it was as an entire group. Because she didn't show up, it actually affected me, even though I did her part. So at that. But then I've had other groups where during my graduate program, and this was pretty interesting because we were all online, like most of you. And I had some classmates that lived in the East Coast. I had some that were actually in Canada, and some in the West Coast where I'm at, like all over the place. But we were able to arrange times to all meet together that worked for everybody. We were able to keep in touch using email and using texting. So everybody knew what they had to do. And I think the best part of that was the communication. But the other thing was that we gave ourselves deadlines before the actual deadlines. So say if something was due by Sunday, we actually told ourselves that we were going to review it by Thursday. So then if we had to make any updates, we had at least 2 days to make additional updates and put everything together. So what we would do is set that Thursday deadline, meet as we're talking about everything, and we submitted it. And then if we needed, we can meet again on a Friday or Saturday to discuss stuff. And it actually turned out well. Everything was turned in before the actual due date, and that was an amazing team. But when we're looking at these roles and responsibilities here, again, these are the three big roles that we have, and also with the responsibilities. You have the shaper. The shaper is performed by people who are natural leaders. They work well under pressure and like a challenge. They keep a positive attitude and can motivate others. Tend to have what we call a type A personality. For the most part, they are extroverts and have the ability to communicate with and motivate team members. And then you have the implementer. This implementer is performed by people that can get things done. They're practical, efficient, and well organized. They turn the team's ideas and thoughts into action plans, tend to be conservative, rigid, and slow to accept change. Then finally, we have the completer or the finisher. This is performed by people with an eye for detail. They tend to be the people that find errors and are considered perfectionists, tend to be self-conscious and concerned with problems or delays. And finally, they may also resist delegating assignments to others. So again, these are your core roles, but you can, of course, depending on the group, have various things in between. You just want to make sure that there's somebody who, again, can help get everything on track, because you do need that person to steer everybody in the right direction, and that can be the voice of the team and make sure that things are actually happening. This role right here it's super important, because everybody has their different ideas. Everybody has like their say, and people want to like say as much as they can. The issue is putting it all together and making sure that it's actually organized and that it makes sense, especially if you're doing a group paper or a group presentation. If a group isn't well prepared, as instructors, we can see that. We can see if the PowerPoint slides don't make sense. We can see when we know like half of the group worked together while the other didn't even know what was going on until the day of the presentation, because you can see it when people are presenting. They don't know what slides are next. They don't know what to do with their part, and they waste too much time. So with having the implementer here, they're the ones that are making sure like everything is super organized, and they get all these ideas, put them together, and actually lay it out. And then over here, finally, the completer and finisher. This is super good because, again, after you have everything laid out together, you still want to go through it and make sure that things are edited well, that things actually transfer over well, carry well, everything sounds the same, and there's no errors. Because trust me, when you turn in group assignments, we're looking at everything as instructors. We're looking to make sure your grammar is good, that everything actually flows properly. It's consistent and it keeps the same rhythm going. When it's like an abrupt change, that can create a lot of issues. So it's important to, again, really have that when we're looking at a group project. So you're also going to choose one of the team member roles, as we just shown, and describe the one that best describes you. Again, if you feel like you are a natural leader, that you are that extrovert, then that would be your role, right? Then finally, explain why you chose that particular role. Again, it can be, well, something, for example, I've always been a natural leader, so when I'm in a group project or something, I tend to be the one that rallies everybody and starts assigning the tasks and starts delegating everything. So again, if that is something that you feel is what calls to you, then let us know. Then you're also going to think about past experiences and the things that you did that exemplified the characteristics of that role. Again, tell us, maybe in a past job, you were a manager or supervisor, or maybe your supervisor manager got sick and you took lead for a week or a month. There's so many examples that you can use when you're going over these. And finally, you're going to choose one of the team member roles that least describes you. Maybe you're good at being a leader or a shaper, but when it comes to actually finding all the errors and stuff, maybe that's just not your thing. And trust me, there's a lot of people that don't have the patience to go through the entire document or the entire presentation and look for all these little issues, right? That's why this role right here is considered for people that are like perfectionists, or people that just like have to look at every single thing. So talk about the one that least describes you on top of the best one, and explain some of the ways that you can be more understanding of a team member with those characteristics, and ultimately improve your communication skills to make sure your team is productive. Not sure how to go about describing this? Take a look at these pages here for ideas on working with team members with different communication styles. Again, this is also super good because I think that is a big issue when it comes to working in groups, is that people tend to be like, well, I know this is how to do it. It's common sense to me, or this is the way it works. Again, everybody has different habits when they're working in a group, or people have different ways of thinking or communicating. It's not to say that somebody's lazy or somebody doesn't want to do something. It's just you have to talk to each other and understand what's going on. Again, when you're working in a group, get to know each other a bit. Know how your lives are. Some people may have kids or other obligations, such as work. You all have to be able to communicate and talk to yourself so you can say, okay, well, I know this person isn't available during the day, but they're more available during the night. Maybe I can rearrange something, or maybe they can rearrange something during the day, maybe on a break or lunch where we can quickly meet. Again, now there's so many tools that you can use. You can pre-record stuff that you're going over, just like I am here. You can do voice messages. There's so much that you can show and work. If you use something like Google Docs or Google Slides, you can show what people have changed. You can leave notes. And again, use everything. Use as much as possible, and it will make a huge difference when you're doing your tasks. But the key thing as to any sort of group work or any sort of like relationship building is communication. Now, when you're doing this, again, have the initial post at least 200 words, and with your peer responses being 150 words. That's kind of the given for all my discussions. I don't normally post them here, but like I said at the beginning of the class, that's kind of my standard, is 200 words for the initial post and 150 words for every peer response. Again, you need 2 of those. Okay. And again, your initial posts are due by Wednesday at 11:59, so before midnight, and your 2 peer responses are due by Friday by 11:59 before midnight. So that is your discussion that you have assigned for you this week. Now, the other big thing is the week 3 submission of topic. Now, I know this is a key one. And again, I'm going to do another video that's going to be focusing mostly on this. So watch that one if you want me to go in depth on the submission of topic. But this one here, just quickly, again, this is due by Sunday. So you still have a few days to give me a draft. And I highly recommend that you give me a draft so that I can review it and give you tips. Again, if I tell you to do something and change it, please do so, because I am the one that's grading it for the computer class. And your English instructor, again, she, we do have the same rubric, so we kind of follow the same pattern. But I know she looks at a lot of the same things I do, and we try to keep it fairly consistent in terms of grading. But keep in mind too that your English instructor and your computer instructor, which is myself, are two different people, so our grades may slightly be different. Like maybe, for example, I give you a 9 out of 10 or a 4 out of 5 on your submission of topic, but your English instructor gives you like a 3.8 out of 5. So there may be some differences. Again, what I'm looking for is, of course, you following the APA format and everything else. But really what I'm looking for is, aside from the APA, is that you actually know how to use the tools, that you know how to do the research, and all that kind of technology side of it. If you make some grammatical issues or some grammatical mistakes, and maybe some things aren't too perfect with the English, then that's fine for me, because again, this is it's a computer class. I just want to make sure that you know how to use the stuff, you know how to format it right, you know how to use my templates, and most importantly, that you know how to get your research by using the Learn library. So again, those are key things. If you can do this here, like follow those key steps, and if you use my template, this one right here, where it says Josh's template for assignments 1, then you'll be fine. Honestly, you should be pretty good when you're doing this assignment. Now, when you're thinking about a topic, most of you should already have a topic. And again, I'm going to cover this more in the next video, but when you're thinking about a topic, it can be anything that is within healthcare, within technology, within kind of informatics, that realm of information, data, anything like that. So it's a lot of, it's an array of things, right? It's a ton of things. And you can correlate any topic to both your English and your computer class. When you're talking about healthcare and how it's improved, there's a lot of technology that's helped, right? With the devices, with the software, with like electronic healthcare records, for example. That's been a huge improvement within healthcare. And again, that's part of technology. Now, how do electronic healthcare records relate to your English class? Well, it helps promote better communication between hospitals, between doctors. And again, we can see that. So if you need help with a correlation, send me an email and I can help you out. But again, that is my review of going over the Comp 101 for week 3. Now, what I'm going to do too is I'm going to keep this all in one video. And I'm going to now cover the what we need for your week 3 in English and math. So if you only have the computer class, this is the part where you can just pause it or you can end it. But I'm going to now go over the English class, just like what we normally do in class here. So let's go over English for week 3. So for this week in English class, again, we have a few things. We have your 2 discussions, we have the review exercise, and then again, your submission of topic. And as I'm doing this again, you can use the same topic for the Comp 101 in the English class too. So just make sure that, again, that with the question that asks you, how does this topic relate to the class, that you make it appropriate to whatever class you're doing it for or submitting it to. So if you're submitting it to your English class, make sure that that answer is related to your English class, and vice versa for your computer class. Let's go over the review of exercises here. So actually, let me go over this here. So for this one here, just like what we've seen before, we have 5 questions. All you're going to do with this one here is as it states. In the following statement, which words or phrases create redundancy or word choice problems? And this is the same for all 5 questions. You're going to be reading the sentence that is provided to you. And from here, you're going to choose which words or phrases create redundancy or repetitiveness, right? That's something that we don't, or weird word choice problem, something that we don't want within our writing. So it was the unanimous consensus of all the members that the club should not meet the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, right? So the meeting was postponed until a later time. So here, what are we looking at? Is something that we can see that is creating redundancy or word choice problems? For this one here, we can take a look. It was the unanimous consensus of all the members. You see right here, unanimous consensus of all the members. This right here creates a very redundant issue, right? Unanimous consensus of all the members, because we're already saying a unanimous consensus, that means everybody, right? So if you're going to repeat it again, then it's just going to create some issues. I know a lot of students like to do that or tend to do that by accident just because they want to meet a word count or anything when it comes to that. So just be careful when you're doing these. The best way to find or to see if you have a redundancy issue or a word choice problem is by reading it out loud several times. And you'll be able to hear if it sounds weird or if it sounds off. So again, read some of these and you'll be able to see which ones are right and which ones are wrong. Now let's go over your discussion here. So here we have 2 parts to this discussion. Okay, so your part 1 is reviewing or review of nouns. And right here, like it says, make the following nouns plural. So you're going to take all of these nouns right here and make them plural. You can write tooth, put a dash, and then you write teeth, as teeth is plural to tooth, right? So you can do the same for each of them. I like that some of you use a lot of color in your discussions when you're showing differences. If you want to do that, go for it. Like honestly, when you do that, it makes it so much easier for us as faculty to read them. And it looks nicer for a lot of students, especially when I'm going over this with other classmates. It just pops out and stands out more. So adding more color and making it a little more vibrant helps out a ton. And then from here, you're going to correct the errors found, the errors in the following sentences. So he had much ideas for the environmental conservation. If you read it out loud, you should be able to hear where the issue is. He had much ideas for the environmental conservation. We would know that it would rather be he had many ideas for the environmental conservation. Okay, so again, when you're rewriting this, first write the bad one here, or write the original one. Then you can do one of 2 things. Right next to it, you can rewrite it in a different color and then highlight the word that you've changed, or you can write it right under it. Okay. Now, when you're doing these, when you're thinking about word count, because I know that's like the key thing that a lot of people just hyper focus on, is don't count the question, don't count the original sentence part of your word count, right? We want to encourage you to use your actual answers and your feedback or your communication as your word count, because people tend to reiterate the questions just to kind of get those words up. So try not to do that. Now for part 2 is the writing the process paragraph. As we saw last week, I believe we covered the illustration paragraph and I believe it was the description paragraph. Here now, this week, we start with the process paragraph. So we answer these questions. What types of nouns should be used in effective process writing? And again, if you don't know where to find this, you can go ahead and let's go to our textbook. Once we open up our textbook here, I believe on page 45 is where they start going over these paragraphs here, right? So again, we're talking about illustration narration. Now we're looking over the process. So here again on page 45, like I was saying before, you can see each of these and it gives you a small kind of like a snippet on what they mean. So here, for example, the process, it's to inform the reader about how to do something, how something works, or how something happened. If you still want more information, you can either click here or here, page 79, and like here it says, instructors explain dance moves step by step. Similarly, in process writing, you describe how to do something. So let's look at, here are some examples. So choose one of the following topics and have a group or class discussion, right? Describe the steps that you would take to do that process. Like here, how to plan a party. If I were to ask all of you how would you plan a party, you would give me a process of what to do, or how to find a part-time job. You can say, okay, well, I'm going to go on Indeed.com, look for a job. If I don't have a resume or cover letter, then I would start writing the resume, start writing the cover letter, kind of update it to match with what I need for that job posting, send it out, hopefully hear back and start the interview process for a job like that. Then, or how to organize a garage sale, how to set the table for a formal dinner. Again, there's various topics that you can choose from to get you that idea. But on the next page here is where we actually learn what is a process. So a process is a series of steps done in chronological order. In process writing, you explain how to do something, how an incident took place, or how something works. And here's an example of how to use it at work, right? Because in your discussion here, it asks you, discuss the last time you explained a process to someone at home, at school, or at work. Was your explanation effective? Why or why not? Again, take your time to learn all these paragraphs or all these types of paragraphs, because these are all going to pop up in both your midterm and your final. You're going to be given either the definition, where you'll have to pair it with the right answer, or you're going to be given the word. Like, for example, what is a process paragraph? And you have a multiple choice of various answers to choose from. Okay. So, and for process writing, this one is something that everybody does, right? Like again, just like that topic we just talked about, how to plan a party. People ask you things all the time, whether it's at work or at home, anywhere. Like, hey, how do you get to this place? Well, you can tell them, like, I got to this job by doing this. I started doing assistive work, then I worked my way up, something like that, right? And then again, you can tell us if it was effective, why or why not. Maybe it wasn't effective because you weren't as detailed in your process as you wanted to be, or maybe it was. So again, there's so many things you can talk about there. And just like with before, 200 words for the initial post that's due Wednesday, and 150 words each for each of your peer responses that are due Friday. Again, 2 minimum. Now, here's your final or your second discussion for this week in your English class. Here we have part 1, which is a review of pronouns. So what you're going to do is write a sentence that includes an objective pronoun. When to use possessive pronouns in a sentence, does whom replace the subject or the object? What is an antecedent? And when must pronouns agree with their antecedents? So all these here, you can do one of two things. You can look at your book, right? And we can either try to see where we can find things related to pronouns, or here under the magnifying glass, we can type in pronouns, right? So we can see here indefinite pronouns, plural pronouns. So let's look at page 240, because this is where you talk, I think, generally about pronouns. So a subject pronoun, right? So you can start looking at some of these and seeing, understanding what pronouns are, because again, you're going to be seeing some of this stuff in your midterm and final. The other thing that you can do is we can go ahead and look at the question, and we can look it up online. Like, for example, we can say what is an objective pronoun, right? So as we're looking at this, we can look to see, let's check this one right here. Objective pronouns. A pronoun that replaces the object in a sentence to receive the action. So let's look at this one here. So for example, we have me, you, her, him, it, them, us. Most of these give you some pretty good examples. For example, object pronouns receive the action in a sentence. They're a type of pronoun that replaces object nouns, nouns that receive the action. For example, my dad fixed my screen door. We made him a cake to thank him. Him replaces my dad, right? So these are correlating with one another. My dad and him. Mary ordered chocolate ice cream. She really enjoyed it. Again, there's two things here. We see that it replaces ice cream, but we also see that she replaces Mary, right? Again, they're correlating with one another. Just because we don't want to keep saying Mary or we don't want to keep saying ice cream, this is something that you should also take into account when you are writing yourself. You don't want to keep saying the same name over and over. So you can say it, they. Again, use some of these right here, right? Me, you, her, him, it, them, us. And again, here's another example. I spent the week with my family. I love them so much. Them replaces my family, right? So as it says here, in the last sentence, the verb is love and the object is my family. But because they're the ones receiving your love, if you replace the object noun, my family, with the object pronoun them, the meaning is the same. And just remember, my family is plural, so keep it that way, okay? So that's how you would go ahead and find them. And for the most part, at least even for that one, it might be easier finding some of these answers in your, if you can't find them in your textbook, it might be easier looking on Google to find those. Then finally, for part 2 is discuss the types of pronouns used in effective first person or third person narrative writing. Discuss the last time you used narration to explain an incident or event to someone at home, at school, or at work. Was your narrative effective? Why or why not? So just like what we did with process, we can look here and look at narration, right? Many of you are super familiar with narration when you're watching movies or listening to podcasts or anything. So when you meet a new friend or a romantic interest, family and friends are often enthusiastically ask for more information about this person. They might ask who, what, when, where, why, and how questions. You answer the same questions when you write a narrative paragraph, right? So work in a team of at least 3 students. First, choose a fairy tale to retell. So again, these are some practices that we can do in class if needed. But here are some examples. Yesterday, a young woman wearing a red baseball cap decided to visit her grandmother, right? Again, we're narrating, we're telling who, when, where, why, how, those. So here's another explanation of what is narration. When using narration pattern, narrate or tell a story about what happened. Explain events in the order in which they occurred and include information about when they happened and who was involved in the incidents. You use narration every day. You may write about the week's events in a personal journal, or you might want to send a postcard to a friend detailing your vacation. At college, you may explain what happened during a historical event or what happened in a novel that you have read. At work, you might use narration to explain an incident involving a customer or coworker, right? So here's an example of narration at work. So Joseph Roth, a boiler and pressure vessel inspector, used narration writing in a memo he wrote to his supervisor. As you know, I recently inspected the boiler and the pressure vessels in the refinery on Highway 11. I had a few problems that I would like to mention. When I first arrived, the manager of the unit was uncooperative and initially tried to stop me from examining the boiler. After much discussion, I was finally permitted into the boiler room, where I noticed several defects in the operation and condition of the equipment. So as you can see here, it's narrating everything that's going on. And this is what you were looking for in terms of narration, right? You're telling a story or retelling something. You provide a lot of information. So as you're doing all these, again, everything here should be at least 200 words in length, and you're going to respond to at least 2 peers' posts, and each of those responses should be 150 words each, okay? And again, your initial responses here, due by Wednesday before midnight. Your peer responses, both of them, will be due by Friday before midnight. And after you get all that done, again, work on your submission of topic. As you can see, this is a pretty big week for your English class. So what I would recommend is, as soon as you can, if you haven't already, start working on all these here. and then start working on your submission of topic, or just try to find a good way to manage your time. Because if you save the stuff until Wednesday or even Friday to start really getting all these other things done, it can start piling up. Okay, so be very careful. All right, so that covers the English 101. Now what we're going to do is kind of cover the math, and we can take it from there. So at this point, if you don't have math, you are free to go. So your math class for this week. Now for the math, it's interesting. I know there have been some issues with communication with your current instructor, Mr. Ken. So going forward, if you have any issues with your math assignments, or if you need extra help, feel free to reach out to me. You guys can reach out to me either at math@cnicollege.edu, or you can also email my personal school email, which is jortiz@cnicollege.edu, and I can help you out. You can either join me during my office hours, again, on Wednesdays and Fridays from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. I do also have math-only office hours, just because I've also taken the responsibility of 2 other math courses in the nursing program. So if you need help with those, I have those on Tuesdays and Thursdays, but those I have on a different Zoom. Everything else uses the same Zoom link for the class. But if you want to join me with that, I also provided you all with a Calendly link that does allow you to set up an appointment with me. And that's like a one-to-one on a different day. So feel free to use those. Okay, so for this week for math, you have your same old 2 practice exercises. So for this week, we're going to be looking at, let's see here. We're going to look at the ratios. So again, you have 20 questions per these exercises, right? And right here, it's write the ratio using fractional notation. So we have 301 to 74. So when it says write the ratio using fractional notation, that just means turn it into a fraction. But please pay attention to these questions, because they tell you, or these directions, do not simplify. Okay, so please don't simplify, because then you're going to get the incorrect answer. Okay, so again, you're just going to be looking at all these ratios, but please pay attention. Like here, it says write the fraction in its simplest form. So just like up here, it tells you not to simplify, here it does tell you to write it in its simplest form. Then for the proportion, find the unknown number n. So for here, we're going to look for what this is. Okay, so again, all this here, as you know, it's exercise 3.1, but chapter 5. So what I always recommend for your math class is, let's go to our textbook, is have your textbook open. Your math book has so much information that can help you out for these assignments that I wouldn't know why you wouldn't be using it. Like here, for example, we're talking about ratio and proportion in this chapter, right? You don't have to read every single thing, but at the very least, skim through some of this stuff. Like look through the examples, because these examples here are going to be talking about everything that you need for your practice exercises, for your discussions, of course, and especially for the midterms and the final too, because again, they're all building blocks for everything. Like here, a ratio is the quotient of 2 quantities. A ratio, in fact, is no different from a fraction, except that a ratio is sometimes written using notation other than fractional notation. So for example, the ratio of 1 to 2 can be written as 1 as half, or it can be written like this, 1 with a colon 2. But when it's asking you for fractional notation, then again, you're just going to write it as a fraction. So again, 1, which is right here in your numerator, then to 2 will work right here in your denominator, okay? Now, if it asks you for your colon notation, then this is all you have to do, okay? So again, please do your best to look over these examples, because these examples are everything that you need. When I'm checking your work or doing stuff for you, or even doing some tutoring, I like using the book, because the book covers everything that you need. Your homework has a lot of these options. I mean, a lot of these questions in your examples. It even tells you when you're doing your practice exercises or when you're doing your actual discussions. Let's look at the exercise set. Here, it tells you objective A, write each ratio using fractional notation. And it tells you do not simplify, but it also tells you where to find these. So it tells you see examples 1 through 3. So actually take the time to look through them. I've received a couple of questions or emails this weekend where students just asked me to give them the answers. I'm not going to give you the answer when we go over this stuff. I will help you learn to solve it, and you would have to then come up with the answer. Whether I give you another example that's similar, or I kind of help you work at it, but you will be responsible for finding the answer. Again, my job here, my goal here is to help you understand how to think mathematically and help you kind of get through some of this here. But what we want to do is make sure that you actually know how to solve these, okay? So look at that. Also, the other thing that you can look at is, again, if we go back to our modules, try to use the math videos again. You can go through here, click on this button. And again, when you're looking through some of this stuff, it's going to ask, okay, well, what chapter do you need help with? Is it well, right now, let's go to chapter 5, right? We're doing ratios and proportions. Maybe you need maybe you just need with ratios. Select that section. And then again, remember, we're only going to look at section video lectures. So we want to select that, hit find now, and then we can see these videos. And like I said before, the one with the actual time like this is the full video. So this whole video is 11 minutes and 10 seconds. These two are both parts of this entire video. So you don't need to look at these. Or maybe you want to. You see how it says objective A and objective B? Well, in your homework, you see how it says objective A, objective B? These are the video examples of where you're doing them. That's why if you look at this objective A and it shows you this play button, that just means that this problem is actually solved in those videos. Just like here, objective A and B, it's a mixed practice. You'll see this in those videos. So if you have a problem, and trust me, like all of these, look at all of these. They're all fairly similar to that problem. Maybe here, sure, there's already a fraction. You can turn this either into a mixed number or something else to help you. But they're all relatively the same. So again, use your textbook, use the videos as much as you can, because again, they will help you. And if you're still having troubles aside from that, then email me again at math@cnicollege.edu and I can help you out. So aside from these two practice exercises, again, these are due by Sunday. You get 2 attempts per problem and there's no time limit. Now, when we're looking at the week 2 discussion here, again, your assigned number is still the same one from when you first got it. So for example, say I'm number 1. You have 3 problems. So here we're looking at sections 3.4 and 4.3. So we're kind of just still within chapters. Actually, this is week 2. Let's look at week 3 here. You should be chapters 5 and 6. Okay, so 5 and 6 is what we're covering this week. So again, just look for your problem in the textbook, just like I did here. You look for your problem and you show your work. So if I'm given this, again, for these, because they are pretty simple in terms of showing the proportion like we saw, what you want to do is kind of maybe use some arrows and actually provide explanation in writing. Like where does this go? It goes in your numerator, right? This goes in your denominator, and explain your process or your thinking process when you're doing some of these when you're doing some of these problems that are a little easier. Try to think of it like journaling, right? Like you're talking to your classmate and saying, well, when we're doing these ratios and we're writing them in fractional notation, what we're doing is just changing the way it's written and the way we can see it. Because if we're talking, we might say 7 to 12, but we may also say, okay, well, 7/12 or 7 divided by 12. And again, it just helps us see the problems differently. And again, you can provide a thorough explanation onto what these are. But remember, there are various ways you can show your work. You can provide an image, you can provide an embedded image, or there's just so many other things that you can do, okay? So if you have any questions, again, please feel free to reach out. But that covers your math. Again, math stays pretty consistent throughout the program. In week 5, we do have a midterm. So for week 4, next week, I will find a day when I meet with you guys next Monday to see when you want to go over do your reviews for both the math and the English midterm. And we can cover those together. But aside from that, again, please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions about this week. And look for the video on the submission of topic that I'll be doing. But again, if you need anything, let me know. Thank you guys.